The rain that Monday morning was the kind that made even the most devoted workers consider calling in sick. But for Mrs. Angela Akand, branch manager of Union Apex Bank, absence was never an option. She sat in her silver Toyota Corolla, the wipers battling the downpour, when the engine coughed once, twice, then died completely. She tried again. Nothing. Her eyes darted to the time. 7:45 a.m. 15 minutes to opening. Her staff knew she hated lateness, and here she was, trapped outside her own bank's gate like a stranded stranger. Before she could curse her luck, a figure in a navy blue raincoat appeared, running toward her through the sheets of rain. It was the new gateman. What was his name again? Ifini. He reached her window, rain dripping off his lashes. "Madam, engine problem?" he shouted above the roar of the storm. Angela hesitated. She wasn't used to being spoken to so directly by junior staff. "Yes, it just went off." "Please, open the bonnet." "Let me check," he said, already pulling off his soaked gloves. She almost laughed. What could a gateman do for a Corolla's stubborn engine in this flood? But before she could protest, he was at work, sleeves rolled up, rain pouring down his neck. He fiddled under the bonnet, then looked up. "Battery's fine, but water's gotten to the plugs. We need to push it inside before it drowns completely." Push? In this rain? Yet somehow, the confidence in his voice made her obey. She stepped out, the cold biting through her heels and stockings. Ifini waved her back toward the wheel. "No, madam. Sit inside. I'll do the pushing." And he did. Alone. The rain hammered his back, his shoes splashed through muddy water, but he pushed with all his strength until the car rolled through the bank gate and into the dry canopy. Angela sat stunned for a moment, watching him stand there, chest heaving, rain dripping from his jawline. "You should change out of those wet clothes," she said finally, her voice softer than she intended. He gave a small smile. "Duty first, madam. Customers are coming." Then, without waiting for thanks, he jogged back to the gate. All through the day, Angela couldn't shake the image of him. The way he moved without hesitation, the quiet pride in his work, the way he didn't ask for anything in return. It was nothing, or so she told herself. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "This is how it begins." For the next few days, Angela found her eyes drifting toward the gate more than she cared to admit. She told herself it was simply to ensure the bank security was in order. But the truth? She wanted to see him. It started innocently. A brief "good morning, madam" at 7:55 a.m., his deep voice carrying over the hum of the street. She would nod, pretending not to notice how his smile seemed to survive even the Lagos chaos. One Friday evening, the power went out unexpectedly. The generator team said it would take a while to fix. Most staff hurried home, but Angela stayed back to finish some urgent reports. As she stepped out for air, she saw him at the gate, leaning against the wall, looking at the dark street. "You're still here?" she asked. He straightened quickly. "Yes, madam. I don't leave until the last staff leaves." "You wait for me." His lips twitched. "It's my job, Ma. I make sure everyone gets home safe." She moved closer, and for the first time, she noticed details. The neatness of his uniform despite the dust, the tiny scar above his eyebrow, the calm steadiness in his eyes. "What did you do before this job?" she asked, curiosity slipping through her professional tone. "I was in school. Mechanical engineering at the Polytechnic. But my father died, and my mother became sick. I had to drop out to work." The words were simple, but they sat heavy in the air. "And now? Now I work, save, and hope. I will return one day. Life doesn't end until you stop dreaming." Angela didn't reply immediately. She was used to men with degrees, cars, and sharp suits, men who talked about investments and vacations. But this gateman talked about hope like it was a living thing. Over the next weeks, the small talks grew. Sometimes it was about the weather. Sometimes about Lagos traffic. Sometimes he would ask if she'd eaten lunch, and if she said no, he'd disappear and return with roasted plantain wrapped in newspaper. She told herself it was nothing. Kindness, nothing more. Yet, she caught herself smiling at her desk when she remembered his little jokes. One evening, a quarrel broke out between two angry customers outside the bank. Before security backup could arrive, Ifini stepped in, his voice firm yet respectful. In seconds, the shouting stopped. Both men apologized and walked away. Angela watched from her office window, impressed. The boy had a way with people. That night, as she drove home, she found herself thinking, A man can wear a uniform and still carry the dignity of a king. She didn't know it yet, but the walls around her heart had already begun to crack. By the middle of the month, the air around the bank began to change. It wasn't something Angela could point at directly, just the way conversations paused when she stepped out of her office, the way a few junior staff glanced at the gate and then at her. It started after a Tuesday lunch break. She had been craving roasted corn, and when Ifini offered to get some from a nearby vendor, she said yes. He returned with 2 cobs, hot and steaming, and they ended up eating them together near the security post, laughing about how Lagos street food had its own magic. The next day, Lydia, her closest colleague and oldest friend at the bank, closed the office door and leaned against it. "Angela, I'm going to say this once," Lydia began, lowering her voice. "People are talking." "About what?" "About you and the Gateman." Angela almost laughed, but Lydia's serious eyes stopped her. "They say you spend too much time with him. They say it looks inappropriate for a branch manager." Angela's brows tightened. "Since when is eating roasted corn a scandal?" "It's not what you do, it's how people choose to see it," Lydia said gently. "You know this city. People don't forgive women for breaking the rules." Angela waved it off, but inside, something twisted. The whispers grew louder. One afternoon, as she passed the front desk, she caught 2 tellers quickly lowering their voices. "I heard she gave him lunch money," one murmured. "It's like she's forgetting who she is," the other replied. Even the security supervisor, a middle-aged man who'd always been polite, pulled her aside. "Madam, forgive me, but this thing with you and Ifini, it can damage your image. You are a manager. He is, well," he let the unfinished sentence hang like smoke in the air. Angela forced a cold smile and walked away, but the sting lingered. Then one Thursday, she saw something that silenced every doubt she'd had about her interactions with him. A woman with 2 small children was standing outside the bank, clearly distressed. She had come to withdraw the last N5000 in her account, only to realize she had misplaced her ATM card. She was crying quietly when Ifini approached. Angela watched from inside as he listened, then reached into his own pocket and handed her some money. She saw the woman's lips move in thanks before she walked away with the children. Later, Angela asked him why he did it. "She was hungry, madam," he said simply. "If you can solve a person's pain in that moment, why wait?" That night, Angela lay awake thinking about it. The world measured people by titles and salaries. But here was a man with neither, who gave from the little he had without hesitation. The whispers could say what they wanted. Her heart was no longer listening to them. The rainy season in Lagos had a way of turning even the most familiar streets into rivers. That Friday evening, Angela stayed late at the bank to prepare end-of-week reports. By the time she stepped outside, the clouds had turned an angry black, and thunder rolled across the city. She hesitated at the entrance. Ifini wasn't at the gate. The night guard had already taken over. The wind whipped her umbrella as she got into her Corolla, determined to make it home before the heavens opened. Halfway down the road, the storm broke. The rain fell so hard it blurred her windscreen. Water gushed along the gutters, swallowing curbs and creeping onto the road. She gripped the wheel tighter. Then the inevitable happened. The engine sputtered once, twice, and died. Her heart sank. She was stuck in a shallow flood, the rain pounding the roof like drumbeats. She reached for her phone, but before she could dial, a figure emerged through the curtain of rain. It was Ifini. Angela's mouth fell open. "How?" she began, but he was already at her door, drenched from head to toe. "I heard you left late. I followed on my bike. I knew this road would flood," he shouted over the rain. She blinked. He followed her? Without another word, he waded into the water and tried to push the car to the side. The flood was knee-deep, the current tugging at his legs, but he didn't stop. When he realized the water was rising too fast, he opened her door. "Madam, we have to move now." Before she could protest, he bent, scooped her into his arms, and carried her toward a nearby shop with a dry overhang. Angela clung to him, her heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. His grip was strong, steady, a shield against the chaos around them. Inside the shop, she watched rainwater drip from his hair onto the floor. "You're going to catch pneumonia," she murmured. "I'm fine," he said, catching his breath. "You're safe. That's all that matters." For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the storm raging outside, the air between them electric and quiet at the same time. Something shifted in Angela's chest that night. This wasn't gratitude. It wasn't pity. It was something warmer, more dangerous. As the rain eased, he found a keep to take her home. He refused the money she tried to give him. "Good night, madam," he said softly, before walking back into the wet darkness. Angela stood at her doorway long after he was gone, her hands trembling. She didn't say it aloud, but she knew it now. She was in love with her Gateman. Angela didn't need a prophet to tell her the storm had shifted from the weather to her own life. It began with her mother's phone call. "Angela, is it true?" Her mother's voice was sharp, heavy with accusation. "Is what true, Mama?" "That you've been mingling with a Gateman?" "A Gateman, Angela." Angela closed her eyes. "Mama, Ifini is a good man." "Good man? Is that what you call it now? After all I suffered to give you an education? After sending you to the best schools? You want to shame me in front of my friends?" The conversation ended with her mother declaring, "If you continue this madness, don't call me your mother again." 2 days later, her elder brother, Kunal, showed up at the bank unannounced. He didn't waste time. "Angela, listen to me. This is career suicide. You're a bank manager, a respected one. And you're about to throw it all away for a man who opens gates for a living." She tried to explain Ifini's background, his character, his kindness, but Kunal cut her off. "Society doesn't care about his heart of gold. They care about status. And once your name is dragged through the mud, there's no going back." If that wasn't enough, the final blow came from her regional director. He called her into his office one afternoon, his tone deceptively polite. "Angela, you've been an exemplary manager for years. But there are observations about your personal conduct. For your sake, I advise you to keep relationships with junior staff strictly professional." The message was clear: end it, or your job might be next. Angela went home that night feeling caged. She didn't want to lose her family's respect, her career, or the man who had somehow found a way past every wall she'd built around her heart. But the pressure was relentless. She made the hardest decision of her life, to cut him off. The next day, she avoided his gaze. When he greeted her, she nodded curtly. She stopped passing by the gate for small talks. Lunch breaks were spent behind closed office doors. And Ifini, he didn't chase her. But she noticed how his smile dimmed, how his steps grew heavier. 3 weeks passed like that. 3 weeks of pretending she didn't miss him, of convincing herself she had done the right thing. Then one Monday morning, Lydia walked into her office with a strange look. "Have you heard? Ifini's leaving. Today's his last day." Angela froze. "Leaving where?" "Another job. Different city. Better pay, they say." Her pen slipped from her fingers. In that instant, she knew, if she let him walk out of her life now, she would never forgive herself. Something inside her snapped. She grabbed her bag and headed for the gate. The sun was unusually hot for a Monday morning. Angela's heels clicked across the bank's tiled floor as she strode toward the gate. Her pulse raced, not from the heat, but from the weight of what she was about to do. He was there, standing tall in his neatly pressed uniform, holding the small bag that carried all his belongings. The customers at the ATM queue glanced curiously. Staff lingered near the entrance, pretending to be busy but clearly watching. Angela stopped in front of him. "Ifini." Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "Madam," he replied, his tone soft but distant, as though he had already accepted goodbye. She took a deep breath. "I hear today is your last day." "Yes, madam. I didn't want to disturb you. It's better this way." For a second, silence wrapped around them. The traffic hummed in the background. The smell of roasted groundnuts drifted from the street. Then Angela said the words no one expected. "It's not better this way. Not for me." He blinked, confused. "I don't care what people say," she continued, her voice growing louder. "I don't care about titles or gossip. I care about the man who pushed my car through the rain. The man who gives without asking. The man who taught me that dignity isn't in the clothes you wear but in the way you treat people." The whispers around them swelled. Angela stepped closer, close enough for the whole bank to see she wasn't hiding. "If you leave today, Ifini, you're not just walking away from this gate. You're walking away with my heart. And I don't want you to." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Some staff exchanged stunned glances. Others smiled faintly, almost enviously. For a moment, he just stared at her, this woman who held the keys to the bank's vault and yet was willing to lay her pride down in front of him. Slowly, he set his bag down. "Madam." "Angela, are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." The crowd was still murmuring when she reached for his hand. Right there at the gate, under the Lagos sun, where everyone could see. From that day, their love was no longer secret. She helped him enroll in part-time classes, he continued working with pride, and together they faced every snide comment and judgment with a united front. Over time, many of those who once whispered began to greet him with respect. Some even came to him for advice. Because the truth is, respect is contagious when you live your life with integrity. Moral lessons. Status can open doors, but character keeps them open. The opinion of the crowd will fade. The peace in your heart will remain. Love is not about matching titles. It's about matching souls. Please subscribe. The news spread faster than wildfire. By the end of that week, Angela's name was on every tongue, from staff cafeterias to family WhatsApp groups. Some called her courageous. Others whispered she had lost her senses. Her mother didn't speak to her for weeks. Kunal sent her cold, clipped messages. At the bank, the regional director visited unannounced, his eyes heavy with disapproval. "Angela," he said in a voice that tried to sound calm, "you are risking your entire career. Clients are beginning to ask questions." But Angela had already made peace with herself. She refused to let fear undo what she knew was right. Meanwhile, Ifini's world was changing too. For the first time, people looked at him differently, some with envy, some with outright contempt. "A woman rescue you," one of his friends teased cruelly. But Ifini didn't flinch. "Better a woman who sees my worth than a crowd that doesn't," he replied. Despite the heat, their bond grew. Angela helped him register for part-time classes. He, in turn, remained fiercely independent, refusing to live off her wealth. "I don't want to be your project, Angela," he told her one evening as they walked by the waterfront. "I want to be your partner." Her eyes softened. "And that is exactly why I love you." Still, they knew the battle was only beginning. Society doesn't forget quickly, and not everyone was willing to let them be. 3 months later, the test came. A major client, a high-profile businessman, stormed into Angela's office. He had heard the rumors and couldn't hide his disdain. "How can I trust my millions to a woman who embarrasses herself with a gateman?" he sneered. Angela's jaw tightened. "Sir, your money is safe because of my integrity, not my relationship status. If that is not enough for you, you are free to take your business elsewhere." The man left, slamming the door. Angela sat in silence, her chest pounding. That single decision could cost the bank millions. Later that evening, she told Ifini about it. "Maybe they're right," she whispered. "Maybe I'm dragging my own name through the mud." But he took her hands, his voice steady. "Angela, if love makes you lose people who only measure worth by titles, then maybe those people were never yours to begin with." His words rekindled her courage. Days later, that same businessman returned quietly. He had moved his account, but the new branch had mishandled it. With reluctant respect, he reopened with Angela, saying nothing about her personal life. It was the proof she needed. Competence would always speak louder than gossip. That night, as they sat side by side under the stars, Ifini told her, "Storms will keep coming. But Angela, if we hold each other, we'll walk through every one of them." And she believed him. Please subscribe.